Hi, it's Miss Becky with the Madison Library. I'm not at the library. As a matter of fact, I am at Grumpy Acres. And behind us here is a bee farm. And that's it. And this is Benita and Grumpy Massey. And they're the beekeepers and owners of Grumpy Acres. And they're going to teach us so many things about bees. We've already been hearing some wonderful things. I can't wait to get started.
Perfect.
All right. And I understand that you have a bee suit for me?
We do. We have bee jackets and some gloves, but they're really gentle. And most of the bees that are out running around are girls, so they like us. But the big thing with bees is you always want to be calm. You want to be deliberate in your actions. You don't want to go be noisy and making a bunch of racket around them. They actually ignore you. That's okay. And they like warm, sunny weather like today. They don't like rain, they don't like clouds, they don't like cold. So this is a perfect day, and we can play with some bees.
All right, let's do it.
That sounds great.
Well, it's still Miss Becky, and it's Miss Benita, and we're all suited up and ready to go. What do you want to show us, Miss Benita?
What we're going to show you is, and if you can see, you probably see some bees flying around us. They're just busy doing their thing right now. They're out looking for nectar and pollen. All the ones that you see flying are females. The majority, about 99% of the bees in the world are female. All the worker bees are female. So we're going to go in to this, which is a horizontal hive. It's an old style hive. Used in Eastern Europe and Western Europe, they use this a lot. And the hive is all in one viewing area. Whereas the ones behind you go up. This one goes this way. But this is nice because we can actually see the bees much easier this way. And we can see where the brood or the baby bees are, instead of having to take boxes off. So my husband's heading this way with a smoker. We're going to crank it up and we're going to go in the hives.
All right, let's do it.
There you go.
My name's Grumpy, and I built this for my wife. We're experimenting with this year to see how it does, because it's a little bit easier to work. It's horizontal instead of vertical, so everything is accessible at one time. You don't have to move heavy boxes, because a box can weigh anywhere from 75 to 80 pounds when it's full of honey and bees and everything else. So, and it's just basically a horizontal hive. So she's going to go into it and show you all some stuff about the bees in there.
The other thing about the horizontal hive is it's thicker walls. It's got more insulation, so the bees are better protected. So we're just going to take the top off.
Wow.
And this is not a full hive. They fill it up by the end of the season. We'll take that. As needed, as they grow, we'll add more frames this way. But you can see, and we put the screens in. These screens actually give them a lot of ventilation. It also gives them protection against something coming into the hive, like small hive beetles. So they're better protected. So you can see here, we've got two groups basically. And the two groups, and they've actually done a really good job of propolis in these screens. This is propolis and burrcomb. And you can see how gentle they are. They're not agitated, they're not upset, they're just doing their job.
They're busy.
They're busy like bees. That's exactly it. And what happens is, you have the group over here, they're actually working this, they're putting nectar up and getting that all ready. These are new frames, so they have to take and produce wax and form it to form the honeycomb. Down here is where your brood chamber is, and that's basically where the queen lives. And she can go anywhere she wants to, okay? But they're going to cluster around certain ones, and because these are new frames, she wouldn't be laying in those yet. She has to have the honeycomb drawn, and she'll lay up to about 1,500 to 2,000 eggs a day.
Oh, a day?
A day.
Oh, my goodness.
And that's, in this area, it's for about 10 months out of the year.
Wow.
So the queen's really special, and she's extremely important. Without her, the hive will die within about 6 weeks. Because bees only live 6 weeks.
Really?
In the summer, yes, that's all they do. They literally work themselves to death.
Oh, my goodness.
And they're very driven. But the queen actually, even though she is the queen and she's the most essential bee, she actually does not rule the hive.
Who does?
The workers do.
Really?
They make the decisions. They decide what's going to happen. They do all that. And they basically tell her what she can and can't do.
Wow.
So even though she's the most important one, she's not the one, ordering everybody around. I'm going to take one of these frames out and show you what they've been doing.
Okay.
These are some we just put in last month. And as you can see, the bees are gentle, Becky. I mean, they really are.
You sound like you need to convince me. I appreciate that.
I know. And I mean, it's like we didn't even smoke these guys. We rarely smoke our bees simply because you don't need to.
Right.
Now,
Smoking them makes them calmer, is that right?
It calms them. What it does, it makes them go eat a bunch. And it's kind of like after Thanksgiving dinner. You've eaten too much and you're kind of fat and happy. This is where they're just starting to draw out comb on the frame.
Okay.
They have not drawn very much at all. So, but they have to produce these little bitty flakes of wax.
And this will all be filled up eventually, right?
It will.
Okay.
It absolutely will. And they stick everything together with a thing called propolis. It's made with tree resins. It's made with all kinds of stuff. And it's probably one of the best glues you can imagine. Now, this is one where they're doing more. See how they've drawn it out?
Yeah.
Every bit of that, they've produced the wax, they've chewed it, and they formed it to just perfect hexagonal.
Wow,
Put
that's
that in there.
amazing.
They are amazing. And the amazing thing is, because these guys live such a short time, it's amazing that they know what to do.
Right.
And they have very specific jobs in the hive. You know, as soon as they emerge from their self, which basically is being born, here's one where they've started filling it up with honey and nectar.
Ah.
See all the shiny stuff?
Yes. Can you
That's
get a
nectar.
good picture of
Yeah.
that?
That's all nectar. Now they've drawn that comb out beautifully and they're filling it up. And the stuff on top that's got this little white, that's a little sheet of wax.
Okay.
Once it's capped off, it's actually honey. Before they do that, it's still nectar.
I see.
It's too wet.
I see.
And if you took that out, you would actually have fermented, you'd end up with mead. So you let them do it. They know when it's dry enough, and at about 18% moisture level, they'll start capping the nectar off. They actually dry it out.
That's amazing.
It is. I
Now,
mean,
these are all female here that we see working? Is that
yes.
right? Okay.
Yeah, there's probably maybe 1,000 or so drones in there. I don't see any drones around and about. In the spring is when they actually, the queen will start laying some drone eggs. And they are basically unfertilized eggs. So they need them because in the fall, they actually kick all the dudes out. They kick the drones out. Because they eat a lot and they don't do anything except hope to get a date with the queen one day. And if they eat too much out of the hive over the winter when they have no more food to get, they'll starve and die. So they're not going to let that happen. I want to find and let you see what baby brood looks like.
Okay.
And here we go. This is where the queen's going to be, in this area. It's going to be where the most of the bees are. They're going to be, these are nurse bees in here. And for the first 2 weeks of their life, a bee is called a nurse bee. They actually take care of the new baby bees. They clean the hive. They take out the dead bees. And they actually care.
Oh, that's on this side, it's beautiful.
Oh, it's gorgeous. All those little
yeah.
flat, kind of brown things, those are baby bees under there.
Oh, wow.
That's all new bees that Queen's laid.
Oh, my goodness.
And you can see how beautiful. They actually, if you can zoom in real tight, you can see little bitty larvae right up here. See the little white stuff?
I do. Yeah.
Those are larvae. So when they're 8 days old, the larvae's eggs are 8 days old, they cap them off for them to be a pupa. And then they'll mature in that state, and after 21 days, they'll come out. They'll chew their way out. So the queens, yeah, it's, I mean, the wind, it's a little windy and you don't want, I mean, they're actually pretty gentle. But all these are going to be your nurse bees here.
See, we haven't smoked them the first time. We just have the smoker here in case they get really antsy.
Right.
In fact, if you smoke them too much, it actually makes them mad. Some new beekeepers will just smoke them and smoke and smoke, and it makes them so mad. But you can see, look how pretty.
Oh, wow.
Isn't that beautiful?
Yeah.
This is a very prolific queen. She's doing a really good job.
That a girl.
Yeah, she's laying her little tush off. So, like I said, she'll lay as much as she can. If she runs out of room, if they can't build enough comb ahead of her, she'll stop laying. So it's essential they keep building this comb. And they actually store the food around the edges. They store honey and they store pollen because they need to feed the baby bees or the eggs and larvae, they need to feed them bee bread, which is made out of pollen and honey. So all that has to be done together. So, what do you think? You think they're kind of mean and aggressive, or?
I think they're so busy, you know. Now, if a child sees a bee out when he's out playing, what should he do?
Just leave them alone. You know, they're out, and usually if they come up to you and they're kind of buzzing you a little bit, they actually think you smell good. Because bees go by smell. They're going to smell flowers and blooms, and they're going to go there for the pollen nectar. So they think that's actually a compliment. They think you smell good. So leave them alone. Just, duck your head and walk away, and they'll do their thing. They're not trying to hurt you, because if they sting you, they're going to die. So they don't want to do that. So
I didn't know if that was a wives' tale or not, but that's what happens.
well, what happens, the stinger is actually connected to their internal organs. So when they sting you, their internal organs come out.
I see.
They pull it out. So no, they don't want to. So they're really just super nice.
Would you
little sweet
behave
bees.
differently if it was a hornet or something like that?
Oh yeah, hornets are very different.
Okay.
Honeybees are amazingly gentle. I mean, once in a blue moon, you might have an aggressive hive, and usually what you do is you requeen it, because the bees are going to be as the queen. So you might have an aggressive queen, or you just leave them alone, and you learn their temperament. Kind of, if you have a dog that's kind of grumpy, you can learn to work with the temperaments. And down here, they're storing up honey for the winter, and we'll keep adding frames in here. But yeah, hornets and wasps are totally different. And people ask us all the time, well, don't you get stung? And yeah, we do. Sometimes we do. Most of the times it's our fault, because we did something stupid, like we grabbed a bee and mashed it, and when you mash them, they're going to sting you.
Right.
Right. So
Self-defense
yeah,
mechanism.
but you can see they're just really sweet. They're really gentle, and they're really working hard in here to get this built up, because before this is done, for the end of the year, hi babies, what they'll do is they'll fill this whole thing up.
Okay.
Yeah. They only come out when the sun's shining. And when the sun hits them, that's when they're going to start coming out.
And you explain the propolis and all that.
Yep. And at the end of the day, when the sun's going down, that's when they start coming back in. They bring all the pollen and the nectar that they found. And Grumpy's going to put this back together for it, because it's a little heavy. But didn't he do a good job building it?
Yeah,
That's really neat. It really is.
Well, we build our own swarm traps.
You built all the screens for me and all that.
And what we do is, the more equipment that we can build ourselves, in some cases, it'll save us a lot of money, because the cost of equipment is not a recurring cost. It's a one-time cost. If you maintain your equipment, that'll last you for years. We bought some equipment that we're still using. It was probably 30 years old.
Oh, that's great.
That's true. I mean, the frames, each of those frames cost about a little over $3. So, and each of the boxes you see costs about $20. The bases under these upright hives are about $40 to $50. And then the tops are about, so you're looking, and then jackets and everything else, you're looking at an investment. But the thing is, this is one time as a rule, if you take care of your stuff. And the other thing is, it's a really good thing to be doing, because bees are responsible for so much of the pollination that produces our food.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, every 30% of our food is directly responsible to pollination by honeybees.
Wow.
So you figure all the apples, the peaches, the pears, the plums, all of this, coffee, chocolate.
Chocolate.
Chocolate, yeah.
Protect these.
Protect them,
Every way you
absolutely.
can.
The coffee and the chocolate especially. But all of those things, the vegetables, zucchini, squash, watermelons, all those things require honeybees to pollinate them. Without them, we wouldn't have all those products. So they're really important to have, and it's a good thing if somebody's going to be a beekeeper, to protect them and let them be bees. They know what they've been doing. They've been doing this for, they think, about 65 million years.
Oh my.
Without significant changes. So they obviously know what they're doing, and they're nosy. See, they are nosy.
Yeah,
aren't they?
a lot of them were around my head. I think they smelled something here a
And
while
they
ago.
will, and they will buzz you, and they'll check you out. But you can see when it gets warm. This is a hive that we started in March. We actually grafted our own queens this year.
Oh wow.
So we took very young eggs, grafted them into a specific system, and set it into where the nurse bees would raise queens. Okay, and this was one of them. We had 6 of them that we did, and they're hanging out on the front. It's hot,
Yeah.
so they hang out on the front, kind of like sit on the front porch, and they'll fan and they'll cool off. So
Telling stories, huh?
they do. They hang out.
Well,
They
they're
also-
actually telling stories. It's because they're talking to each other. They'll do a dance
Yep.
to tell everybody where they're going and where they're finding whatever they're finding.
Right.
But this hive won't share with this hive. They will come, like as Grumpy said, they come in, and by their movements and what they do, they say, you know, go down here 2 miles, turn left, there's this big thing down here, some good stuff. So they communicate those things by their movements.
That's amazing.
Yeah, but this one won't tell this one. But they'll bring in, you know, pollen, and they'll bring in the nectar, and they'll hand it off to the other bees. And they're fascinating little creatures. I mean, they're absolutely fascinating.
Oh, yeah.
And we so need them. So the big thing, and a lot of people ask me, what can I do to help the bees, right? The biggest thing as a young person you can do is just be aware of them. Don't hurt them. If you'd like, you can do a bee-friendly garden. Don't use pesticides, don't use chemicals. There's a lot of good natural products you can use on flowers and vegetables and stuff. You can also put out a big flat dish of water. Fill it up with a bunch of pine straw. Bees need water, but they don't swim.
Oh, okay.
So if you just put a dish of water out, they'll drown.
You
So
can
you
show
put
them what they're
something-
doing up here
Yeah.
where we have them watering up here.
Well, it kind of looks tacky up there, but we'll show. But what they need is a float, basically, and the pine straw floats. So they'll land on the pine straw, drink their water, and go do their thing. Yeah. So that's something kids can do.
Right.
But just be aware of the things that we do outside, of all the chemicals, because the biggest issues we have with bee loss is basically 3 things. It's pesticides, it's loss of habitat, and it's a couple of pests that were brought over from overseas in the 90s that have
right.
really hurt, the varroa mite and the small hive beetles. So some we can't control. We do mechanical controls for them, like the trays and the screens that keeps the hive beetles out. Varroa, we actually use an organic method of controlling them. And we actually use diatomaceous earth, which is an organic gardening tool. That the white stuff, and cinnamon, which actually helps. So those are things that we do to control some of these pests. But you know, young people, you might be, especially you might find a young person that can do the research that can solve these problems.
Wouldn't that be great?
Wouldn't that be awesome?
Yeah.
Because there's somebody out there that's going to grow up, do the research, or be in the middle of it now, that's going to figure out a way
Gonna have
to
that aha
control
moment.
these pests. It's going to be
Yeah.
the aha moment that's going to control the pests, and I honestly think it's going to be something a lot simpler than we know. I'm hoping.
Yeah.
So beekeeping is a struggle. The other thing you can do, if you like honey, go find a local beekeeper. Don't buy it at the grocery store.
Okay.
Buy from a local beekeeper that you go meet and you talk to, and you know how he takes care of his, or she, hopefully more she's, are taking care of their bees. And we need young people to be beekeepers, and we need lady beekeepers. And we have one beekeeper that's under 10.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh,
he has his
wow.
own hives. But we need beekeepers, and we need people to support beekeepers. So go find a local beekeeper and buy some honey from them. That's a huge amount of support.
Yes. Yeah. And that's easy to do.
It's easy to do, and it's really good.
That's right.
It's really, really good.
And you're coming Friday, June 4th
I
at
am.
10 a.m. And I understand that we're all going to get a taste of raw honey.
Yeah, we're bringing honey. We got little bitty individual spoons, and we're going to give everybody a taste of honey and see what they think about it. And we're going to bring different colors. Honey's not all one color.
Oh, okay.
Spring honey's very light. Fall honey's very dark. And they taste different.
Interesting.
Well, it's based on what are they feeding off of.
True.
Where that nectar coming from. So depending on that, it's going to change the taste of it. So we're going to bring some honey
Awesome.
and have honey tasting and learn more and more about bees. I want to show you what a frame of partially capped honey looks like. If you look up here, this is all capped, which means the bees have determined that the moisture level is low enough that it's now become honey. If it's got too much moisture in it, it's going to ferment. So they never cap it unless it's ready. This is actually still nectar, so this wasn't quite ready. We pulled this out the other day so I could show you. And you can see how it kind of glistens. This whole side is all nectar. So we'll put this back in and let them finish it off. But this is what it looks like. Now when we take something that is fully capped, once it is, we take a knife and we actually try really hard to take just this little thin sheet of wax off. And this is what it looks like after I cut it off.
Here, you can come even closer if you want.
Yeah. It looks kind of like snake skin almost. It's very, very thin. And this is pure wax.
Oh,
Pure beeswax that they put on there. But the whole purpose of making sure that we are very careful with slicing this off very carefully is that the other frame behind you, Becky, once we slice it off, we want to make sure we protect all this work that they put into the honeycomb. Because if we destroyed this, they would have to rebuild everything. So that's a lot of work, it's a lot of stress. So we want to make sure that this is always preserved, and we store about 400 and some odd of these a year.
Oh my goodness.
Over winter. So we have these. We have 4 freezers that we actually freeze them in and then rotate them in and out of the freezer. That freezer, that freezer, that freezer, and the one in the house. So it's really important to manage the wax and preserve it so that the bees don't have to start from scratch. Extracting, after I take those frames and I slice that little thin sheet of wax off, I'm going to put it in here. We're going to take the frames once it's full of honey and I've sliced that little cap off, that little sheet of wax. And we're going to fill this tank up like that. We're going to fit them in here. It'll take 18 of those. And it's actually got some honey in here if you'd like a taste of honey.
Oh boy.
That we took it the other day. But
Sure.
we'll fill it up with 18 frames. Isn't that good? We fill it up with 18 of these frames, and then we slowly start this, and it'll rotate it, and it works like a centrifuge, which basically is slinging the honey out. So it's going to sling the honey out of those little cells, and it's almost dry when it comes out.
It's empty now, but this will give you an idea how it works, because some kids may not have ever seen a centrifuge or know exactly what it does.
This is what a centrifuge does.
Gets it over the top.
And we start it really slow because it's really heavy. And you gradually crank it up over like a 10-minute time period. We're speeding it up for video purposes. But this will sling all the honey out of those cells on that frame. It drains to the bottom, and then we have a drain over here, and we actually let it drip into the bucket. And all we do is do this, and we actually have a strainer to make sure we pick up any little pieces of wax, and it goes in the bucket, and that's it. That's extracting.
Wow. So if you had 18 frames in here, about how much honey would you get from that, do you think?
We pulled 14 the other day, because this is a new extractor. We're so proud of it.
It's beautiful.
We needed it.
As extractors go, it's
It's a good one.
It's a good one. They can get into the tens of thousands of dollars.
Oh, wow.
This one, not so much. But this will help us extract the honey and not have to crank and do all of that. And we can do more at a time. But where was I going with this? I forgot.
How much honey the 18 frames
honey.
would?
We actually pulled 14 frames the other day, just curious, because we had not used this before. And out of 14 frames, we got 40 pounds of honey, which is this bucket full. It's a bucket full of honey. And you drain them into these food grade buckets.
watching it's on it.
Yeah. We actually strain the wax, because you have wax bits. But what we do is we'll...
Oh, that's beautiful.
Isn't it pretty?
Look at all that.
And it's pure honey.
And that's 40, how much is that?
40 pounds.
40 pounds.
We weigh it, so that was
Wow.
40 pounds. Because honey is measured and sold by weight. It's never sold by fluid ounce.
Oh, okay.
Well, honey's heavier than water. So a quart mason jar, which is... that is good.
Yeah, it is.
And these are all our jars we're going to use for this year, hopefully. A jar like this, which is a quart, would normally be 2 pounds, right? This is 3 pounds. Honey has to be sold by weight, not by volume. So it's always by weight, and you have to have certain labeling requirements to make sure that you label it properly, that you put infant warning signs on it, because infants under a year should not eat it, and that type of thing. But this is what we do, and it gets really sticky in here, and we get wax and honey everywhere. And when we leave here, it's all over us. So, but it's fun.
It's worth it.
It is worth it, and we have some amazing customers. The first year, about 6-7 years ago, we ended up with 1,300 pounds of honey, and we looked at each other and said, "What the heck are we going to do?"
No, she did. I knew what to do. I'm a retired retailer, so if you got something, sell it. So
Right.
But we don't sell in stores. You have to come to us, and we sold out
Did you?
by the end of the year.
How did you advertise it?
He built some signs, stuck it at the end of the road on the
What
weekends,
signs?
literally on the weekend. We stuck some signs out on Saturday and Sunday afternoon and sold out in 5 months.
Wow.
And now we don't do that anymore because we have people that just come. You know,
You
they'll
don't need to
text-
advertise.
Well, they'll text me after that. We know them. They're welcome to text and say, if y'all home, come on over. You can get some honey. That's great. You know,
Well, we sell some, we use some, we donate some.
We
you know,
donate, yeah.
You know, it's different. It's not a business per se. It's more of a
cover our costs.
cover our costs because we have to pay for all the equipment, the extractors and everything. So you can make money selling honey, but you need to be significantly larger than we are.
We're just happy to break even
Yeah.
and cover our costs because you have to have tanks, bottling tanks, 45 cases of jars, you know, quart jars, all kinds of tools, things to measure moisture, to make sure your moisture levels are good. So there's all things that you have to do. And the equipment, like I said, it is expensive. And we went from 14 hives to 25 hives this year.
Wow.
So we jumped up.
Yeah.
So that was a lot more equipment. So
When we started, we were only going to have maximum 4.
yeah, that was it.
Never happens that way, does
So it didn't exactly work out the way we thought it would, but we do it for the bees. We enjoy having people come out, like you guys come out. We're having a group come out in a couple of months or a month and a
I
half.
think in June,
June.
sometime in July.
You know, so we want people to know about bees. We want them to be familiar with them. We don't want them to be afraid of them. We want them to do things that support them.
Right.
Because without them, it would be critical as far as the food supply is concerned, in my opinion.
Yeah, it is. And then we do a lot of school programs, and we do 2 programs a year at the Ag Museum. We do Science Fest and Harvest Fest. That Science Fest was the video that I sent you.
Right, right.
So we do a lot of work with kids.
And we'll be at the state fair, the Central Mississippi Beekeepers Association.
We have
Every
booths.
year has a booth down at the fair, and we have demonstrations. We have a friend of ours has a very large observation hive. He has that. You can see live bees down there. All the Central Mississippi beekeepers are there selling their honey.
Everybody's welcome.
Everybody's welcome, you know, that sells honey.
Not everybody's as gregarious as we are in getting out and selling our honey, because we haven't met a stranger. We rarely do. And, you know, if you tell somebody you're a beekeeper, they go, "Oh, do you sell your honey?" "Sure."
Right.
It's that easy.
If someone wants to get in touch with you to buy honey or to just do something like
Sure.
this, how could they get in touch with you? What would be the best way?
Best way, and you have to pardon me, it is really warm. You can text me is the best way, because I don't take my phone out in the garden and the hives because I've lost them, dropped them, stepped on them. My phone number, here we go, 601-259-6453. Just text me, explain who you are, because I'm an officer of the Mississippi Beekeepers Association, and we have over 300 members, and they're constantly calling, texting, and that type of thing. So just explain who you are. If you're interested in honey, right now we are sold out except for this one bucket.
Wow.
I know, we're sold out, and we have a waiting list. So, but we love to hear from people. If you're interested to be a beekeeper, the association has our meeting every third Thursday at the Ag Museum. We had it last night at 6:30, and we have a Facebook page you can join and check it out. We'd love to have more members.
Great. Thank you so much for today. This has been fascinating.
Thank
Thank
y'all
you.
for coming.
We
We
appreciate
appreciate it. Hope y'all enjoyed it.
All right, and come on Friday because they
Yes.
will be here for our program,
That's
and you'll
right.
get to taste
Yes.
that honey.
Yes.